Let's start the podcast.
Yes, let's get to the housekeeping. First of all, if you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy our very amateurish weather forecasting skills, our meteorology background at a bare minimum, if you enjoy the in-depth storytelling that Mike puts out there with the dad jokes and the superhero references and the analytic deep dives, go ahead and subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. If you like my insider reporting, the features, those sort of things, subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack. But even more importantly, just for the pod, subscribe to the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us a 5-star review. We will read every one of those 5-star reviews on the show each week. You can check us out there. And at my YouTube, Matt Lombardo 975. Michael Palace checks in. He's in Long Island. Up to 10 inches of snow there. I'm telling you, man, this is going to be one of these storms that we talk about for years.
Yeah, I can remember 22-inch storms. I can remember whole months of January that were nothing but ice storms. I'm going back to like 1993, 1994 with these things. And, bring it on. But of course, what I see, again, I'm having Greyhound bus flashbacks here. So I just have to
And I probably triggered your PTSD with that Blue Sky thread that I sent you the other day about the dude who fell asleep on a bus and the bus driver wouldn't take them where they were supposed to go. That was legitimately dangerous, it sounded like.
Dangerous and terrifying. It sounded like some kind of horror movie. If folks who didn't see it, go look on both Matt and I on our Blue Sky feeds. Somebody got trapped on a bus that was being driven, like hijacked by an angry person who seemed like they may have been going through a divorce at that very moment or something like that. Much more harrowing than anything I went through on my bus trip.
I'm just hoping to avoid the Greyhound Mobile. That's all I'm hoping for. I will pick you up and drive. I will rent the car. I will pick you up from your house and I will drive if need be. I am not stepping foot on a Greyhound bus.
You'll be driving yourself to Mobile, because if we're stranded in Philly, and I'm watching tape of these guys and following our friends down there. But again, let's talk about something else, man. You got me freaked out. I'm going to go to the store right now.
You watched a lot of tape over the last couple of weeks?
You?
John Harbaugh. Harbaugh spent a lot of time breaking down Jackson Dart tape and Cam Ward tape and like the Vatican sending up the puff of white smoke. There was blue smoke from the Quest Diagnostics Training Center at 1925 Giants Drive. Since the last time we hosted one of these podcasts, John Harbaugh, the new head coach of the New York Football Giants, the second head coach to put his pen to paper of this hiring cycle. It's a very interesting fit, one that once he became available seemed like the easy dots to connect, but now you have it. The future of the Giants is John Harbaugh, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors, Theo Johnson, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and company. But Harbaugh is running the show as 1A and head coach.
This is the best thing the Giants have done since when? Since bringing Coughlin in? Since Eli? Since David Tyree went like this? Since when? This is the best thing the Giants have done since when?
Hiring Coughlin. I think that it's the most competent they've been since hiring Tom Coughlin. I think that was 2000s. You're talking about over a quarter century of incompetence along the way and falling into success in some regards to now. I still don't know that I agree with keeping Joe Schoen in place, but I think that the fact that John Harbaugh fought tooth and nail over the steak dinner in the wine cellar in East Rutherford to report directly to John Mara and not report to Joe Schoen feels like a big win for Harbaugh, maybe even a bigger win for the trajectory of the Giants.
Yeah, and that's an interesting development there, because it just set up the thing where we have instant power struggle in place. The thing is, if John Harbaugh wins a power struggle from Joe Schoen, and we're probably going to be talking about the Bills in a few minutes, and Schoen has a Bills background, that's a win for the Giants. If Harbaugh is simply like compartmentalizing Schoen as, you get to pick the 3rd through 7th draft picks or something like that, that's probably what's best for the organization.
Yep, and you on the outline, you put together a great way to handle this, talking about which coaches have the quickest turnarounds, or the coaches that will have a quick turnaround fastest. And I think that's just a really interesting place to start. But the problem with the Giants is they're in salary cap hell. They only have like $1.8 million in cap space, at least according to Over the Cap from what I saw. So they're probably going to have to make some pretty difficult decisions. I think that Schoen has done a really nice job of adding the top tier, top of the depth chart talent. Not a great job of filling out the rest of the depth chart. Still some concerns in the secondary, I think, from a talent standpoint. You're going to need to add some pieces to the back end of that defense before you can turn it around, especially in that division. But I think that you look at them, it's in my estimation, Mike, it's probably they can contend for a wild card out of the NFC next year, maybe. And then you just see based on Jackson Dart's trajectory from there going forward.
Yeah, you need to keep Dart healthy. You need Neighbors healthy. You need Scottaboo healthy. When we do these projections, and I'll do the same thing, if they're all healthy, that's an amazing nucleus. I'm looking at the cap situation. That can be cleaned up pretty quickly. I mean, let's see. We can cut Darius Slayton. We can restructure Brian Burns. Why is Paulson Adebo making that much money? Anyway, there's all kinds of very quick fixes in there. They can do what they need to do, and they don't have to pay a quarterback. They don't have to pay anybody in that nucleus. So you throw in a last place schedule. And even me, I like being the skeptic, and yes, nothing's ever going to work out properly, and Dart's going to get injured. Keeping all that aside, this is a team that could turn around and say 9 wins, 10 wins, just because now they're competently run, and if those young guys have a little bit better health luck and that defensive front four stays together, that's it.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about that hire, it's a lot of alignment in terms of how the Giants view themselves is kind of like the prototypical coach would be a John Harbaugh culture-driving CEO delegator type. And I look at them and I think that, okay, it's going to come down to who are the coordinators? Are you going to bring in a rising defensive coordinator, or are you going to lean back on somebody that Harbaugh worked with and had success with in Baltimore? What are you going to do offense? It's not going to be Wink Martindale. That bridge was napalmed on the way out with the previous staff.
Was it though? Because I mean, that was Dable.
It was, but it feels like I don't know that John Mara is going to rebuild a bridge after the way that the reporting went down with how that was handled between Dable and Martin, unless they view it as Dable was the reason and the agitator, and we're going to mend the fences, and Harbaugh pounds the table and says, "I need Martindale." Then I can see it.
I can see that. We don't want that guy coming over from Baltimore. Nobody, I think, really wants to see that. He's like the Kevin Patullo of defense. But like Martindale would be an obvious choice. Was Monk an official an offensive coordinator, or did that wind up? Forgive me for being a little bit scattered here. Did that wind up falling through because he's looking for head coaching opportunities?
Yeah, I haven't. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't seen it officially announced that he was going to be the offensive coordinator. I mean, it would make sense given the alignment and philosophy, the experience together. He's not a guy who's going to want to jump ship to become a head coach tomorrow. It seems to enjoy working with Harbaugh. So we'll see.
Right, and the dance cards are starting to fill up. So originally that was written as that was a done deal. But if you remember, the Harbaugh done deal was a done deal, and then it took like 8 days for it to actually land the plane. And that's what you talk about, the steak dinner with Mara and having to sort of hammer out these things. I know some of our colleagues who we know personally were saying, really, it's money. And then others were saying, really, it's power. And there was this other train, I forget what that was. I don't think it was really money.
No, I think it was getting on the level playing field with Joe Schoen. I think it was all about, I do not want to report to a general manager. I want to report to the owner. And you're starting to see that in a lot of these different vacancies and conversations. I'm sure you're going to have that with the Bills situation when that comes up. And it goes back to the half measure of firing the head coach and not firing the GM. Everybody should go read Mike's column today at the Two Deep Zone. I thought it was a tremendous, insight into the power structures of these NFL franchises. And your tidbit from, I think it was Tim Graham from The Athletic, the nugget that Brandon Beane watched the games with Terry Pagula, the owner, and was in his ear, and that's how he was able to build up that relationship. Joe Schoen might have a similar rapport with Steve Tisch and John Mara that we just don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case. We go on to the Bills a little bit because it is about that kind of power structure type of thing. It's not unusual for the head coach to actually outrank a general manager in an organization. Andy Reid outranks the general manager of the Chiefs, et cetera. I think Harbaugh, who never had that in Baltimore, He was fine answering to DaCosta, who had been there for years, et cetera, et cetera. It's different answering to Joe Sheen. That's a different thing. Now, Brandon Beane in Buffalo takes himself out of all of that by getting himself elevated to president of everything, or president of everything that doesn't involve skates, which is kind of what he is in the Pegula family tree up there. And that creates a situation where Brandon Beane's going to pick the coach. He might even pick a general manager. I haven't heard this reported yet, but like have another insulating layer there of person to answer to the media, take falls, blame, do the dirty work, etc. And what a messy way for the Bills to end their season. Disappointing finish. Fans expect heads to roll. The head that most people expected to roll floats up to the top of the org chart.
Yeah, and that's what I can't understand. I can't understand if you're going to say that we have a generational, once-in-a-lifetime quarterback in Josh Allen, which in a lot of ways you can check a lot of those boxes, but that's reportedly what Terry Pegula believes. And you're going to point to the shortcomings on defense, and you're going to point to the issues and the meltdowns in the postseason as reasons why you haven't been able to win a Super Bowl, much less get to one with Josh Allen. Then I certainly understand firing Sean McDermott. And it reminds me a lot of the James Franklin firing. You can win 10 games every year, but if you're not going to beat Ohio State, you're not going to get to a national championship game, it's just not good enough. But where I really struggle is firing Sean McDermott, not just keeping Brandon Beane, but promoting him when Brandon Beane is the architect. And every Bills fan, every analyst, every reporter look at that roster and say, they don't have a true number one wide receiver. And their answer the last couple of years was going out and trading for a 56-year-old Amari Cooper running on fumes, trading with the Kansas City Chiefs to move back and allow them to select Xavier Worthy. They settled for Keon Coleman, right?
Yeah.
You look at last year, they need a number one wide receiver. They spend 3 of their first 4 draft picks on front 7 defenders.
Yeah, and the run defense stinks.
I can see blaming Sean McDermott for wasting Josh Allen's talent. I get it. But I don't understand how you don't go all the way and fire both and start over, start fresh with a new philosophy from the organizational top all the way down to the coach.
Rich people are stupid. Rich men are, except for the ones who actually like made their money, whatever, they're all stupid. And if you listen to the Pegula press conference, you hear a fundamentally stupid individual who thinks about football, not the way you, me, or the folks listening to us think about football, but the people who are just, I don't know, like at the bottom of the subreddit, listening to WFAN at 2 a.m. That's the way the Pegulas think about football. And they're he said something like, I think we hit a playoff wall. And one of our colleagues on the socials, responded, so I decided to build a new one. Like that, you and I can talk about playoff walls, but losing the Chiefs because the kicker makes the field goal, losing the Chiefs because you left 28 seconds on the clock. I forget what the number was for
13
right,
seconds.
13. The problem this year was that you lost to the Falcons and the Dolphins and the Patriots. The first time the Patriots slid past you in the rankings. Those are the things. You don't look at overtime in the game against the Broncos and say, oh, penalties and weird plays and stuff like that. It's like you weren't at home. You didn't have home field advantage. You had to go on the road for a couple weeks in a row. That's the process you should be looking at. And that should lead you to the conclusion of saying, I shouldn't be listening to Brandon Beane. Jafar whispering in my ear is not my friend. He's a guy looking out for himself. Any of us should have the self-preservation instinct to say, the guy who's ripping the other guy is taking care of himself. And if you don't see that, then you're just another one of these rich doofuses who's going to listen to whoever gets to you first and slaps you on the back and gives you a high five and tells you that you picked the right kind of scotch or whatever it is they do to these guys. And you're going to create these situations where you're going to take your organization and make it weaker instead of stronger.
Yeah, no doubt. And I look at this whole situation with this firing, I don't view it as 5 total turnovers against the Broncos and that being the loss of it. That's why he was fired. It's the culmination of all of the postseason collapses. It's the culmination of not getting a stop in that game as a defensive-minded head coach on 3rd and 11. It's the culmination of not getting off the field with Mahomes in those final 13 seconds. It's the culmination of coming up short time and time again, but it's also... And this is where, again, I'm going to keep hammering this thing. If you're going to build out a roster, if you're going to set your quarterback up for success, you load up on the offensive side of the ball, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
load up and give him all the weapons he needs. You do what the Seahawks have done, dropping Sam Darnold into an offense with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kenneth Walker and two really good tight ends. You do what the Patriots are doing by building out the offensive line and bringing in Stephon Diggs as the top of the depth chart guy and, bringing in all those weapons around him. They haven't loaded up there. They haven't loaded up on what you need to do to maximize Josh Allen. And that falls on Brandon Beane.
And folks who have the Atlantic, go read Tim Graham's almost like a expose of how this went down. And he'll talk about how belligerently Beane talked about the receiver situation, where he kind of did that old Dave Gettleman thing, like, oh, you idiots think we need a receiver when we don't need a receiver. Meanwhile, they're trying to prop up Keon Coleman like he's the second coming of Randy Moss or something like that. And he's a pass dropping, not with the program guy, which is kind of what he was at Florida State. And he was still being that. And they were kind of forced to build like their model for this year around, well, don't worry, fans. Keon Coleman's going to be the guy. And I'll bet you McNarbit knew that Keon Coleman was not going to be the guy because you're the coach sitting there who found I didn't show up for meetings.
Right. And I don't know if you caught any of that press conference with Terry Pagula today, but Brandon Beane was asked about Keon Coleman, and Pagula stepped over him and said that was a coaching decision, that was the coaching staff and Sean McDermott.
It wasn't.
I know.
It was not. It categorically was not. They're lying. Bills fans, tell your Bills fans friends, they're lying. They're lying to you. That was a Brandon Beane decision. I'm bouncing around the thing here, but you know who is sniffing around to get the Bills head coaching job?
Brian Daboll.
Brian Daboll!
Yes, and he's probably the best fit there. I put this out shortly after the the firing, that Brian Daboll's the name to watch because they're going to do everything they can in Buffalo to placate Josh Allen. And Josh Allen loved Brian Daboll, and Brian Daboll has an affinity for Josh Allen. That they believe that Daboll was instrumental in the formative development of Allen early on in his career. I could see that being how this plays out. That they'll check a couple boxes, interview a couple of folks, and it'll be Brian Daboll in Western New York probably by Tuesday.
Brian Daboll is cuckoo nanners. Brian Daboll is cuckoo nanners, okay? And I don't know the Brian Daboll from 6 or 7 years ago that built a relationship with Josh Allen, and he might be somebody who now knows where his bread is buttered and will now kiss Josh Allen's ass or whatever, but he is cuckoo nanners. And giving him more power will be bad. Will be bad.
I know. I'm just telling you, I'm reading tea leaves.
Yeah, but you know what the good news is? Because if Brian Daboll is the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, guess what he cannot be?
Offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yay! That's the best news since Kevin Patullo got fired, is that Brian Daboll is going to be one of the shortlisters for the Buffalo Bills head coaching job.
And we will get to the Eagles offensive coordinator search because I'm sure you're not going to like where I think this thing is headed. But the next team on your list, the Miami Dolphins, they hired Jeff Hafley in about 12 seconds.
Yes.
As soon as the Packers season ended in Chicago, the new general manager was on the phone with Jeff Hafley, of course, having worked together in Green Bay. I don't know about you. I just don't see a turnaround in Miami, because what's the answer at quarterback? It's a very open question. Who are the viable difference makers other than Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane on offense? There really aren't any, because they seem done with Tyreek Hill, injury or not. He's not going to be back. Who replaces that speed, which was so foundational and fundamental to what they do? Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins really feels like Kellen Moore to the Saints, but in a worse personnel situation.
That's a great analogy of it. It's like you can come in, try to make things normal. Be the coach of not the vibes. Be the coach of the normalcy for a while, because there was no normalcy here. And pardon our appearance under construction when we tried to manage the Tua situation and come to a conclusion there, which might mean eating his contract and sitting him on the bench for a year. Trying to manage the Tyreek situation, which sounds like it's a John Eric Sullivan job.
Yeah,
because that guy's got trade value if you can get his cuckoo nanners persona out of town. But what do you get back with him? Are people going to try to expect a discount because of his injury and his Tyreekness, et cetera, et cetera? It's a loose association of nonsense on that roster. Like I don't understand that roster. There's like a guy here, a guy there. There's like a 30-something here. There's a rookie there. So it's going to take a year to just kind of sort things out and make them seem like a normal organization again.
Yeah, you just hope that Jeff Hafley, who by all accounts players love playing for, by all accounts is a really good football mind, former head coach at Boston College. You just really hope that he doesn't get so undone to the situation that he's Jonathan Gannon in Arizona, which I think is how badly this thing could go, where you take a defensive-minded head coach with a bunch of like spare parts, no-name pieces of loose change on that side of the ball, couple of playmakers and weapons here on the offensive side of the ball, no cohesion, no identity. As an offensive-minded head coach, a defensive-minded head coach in an offensive-centric league, it just doesn't seem like the pieces are there in a division that houses the New England Patriots, who are a win away from a Super Bowl, that houses Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and houses the New York Jets, who, for everybody making them a laughingstock, they have over $68 million in cap space, 2 first-round picks this year, 3 first-round picks next year, 7 second-round picks over the next 2 years. That's going to be a turnaround that happens pretty quick, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do at quarterback. It feels like that's the one, other than doing a favor to my guy, my general manager, John Eric Sullivan, it just seems like that would be one that I would have avoided.
Yeah, putting aside all that Jets stuff where like my mind exploded for a second, just letting that one go. Yeah, Hafley has his work cut out for him. I guess one of the questions, and we're about to talk about the Titans, offensive coordinator is going to be his next thing. And he's part of the LaFleur Shanna family. But everybody's part of the LaFleur Shanna family now, and you want to bring in a offensive mastermind from that family. You just fired one. So I don't know what that's going to look like. So I think that's the first step. I can't talk about a turnaround for the Dolphins until at least say, okay, who's running the offense? How much is it going to look like a McDaniel-flavored offense? And then we can start talking about, well, who are you drafting at quarterback?
Right. But you don't have to worry about drafting a quarterback in Tennessee because you have Cam Ward. And I happen to really love the Robert Saleh hire in Tennessee. I like it a lot with the asterisk and the condition that he knocks the offensive coordinator hire out of the park. Like if you can go and get like a Joe Brady, or you can go and get, a Mike LaFleur, or you can go and get even a Brian Dable for the quarterback developing element of it. I really like that situation. Ward really finished the second half strong. You build on that trajectory. You instill an attitude. You have a defensive genius to kind of rebuild that side of the ball. You're picking in the top 3 picks. It just seems like they could be next year's Jacksonville Jaguars, in my opinion, in that division.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying about the offensive coordinators, where you name all the names, and it's like they're going to be wrestling for those guys. And then if one of them leaves their job at their team, like if Mike LaFleur leaves the 49ers, or he's the Rams, excuse me, then somebody else will be looking to slide in there, and there's only so many jobs to go around. I like the Salah, pronounce it for me again. Saleh hire. They look like a team that next year is going to be the 7-10 team, the 6-11 team. Like, yeah, we put it together. Ward is now good. The trajectory for Ward has now been straightened out. They were uncoached this year. From week 4 on, they were uncoached. It was almost like the team that was going out there and playing pickup against their opponents, and it showed at times. You put some structure in place. You put some developmental structure on some of the young players in offense around Ward. Defense, they probably had more talent on defense than the Niners had by the end of the season. So they can straighten that out very quickly. It's just a matter of, you talk about the division they're playing in. I don't think the Jaguars are going away. Texans are not going away. Colts are going to be a 500-ish team. They'll do something at quarterback. They'll be 500-ish. So you're going to be in that position where it's like, oh, if you get 2-4 in your division, you get your last place schedule, you get 6-7 wins. I don't know how much further than that you go.
Remember, no first-round picks in Indy. Remember, because of the Gardner trade. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to figure out that quarterback situation, and unless you're throwing a boatload of money at Daniel Jones or Malik Willis or trading for Kyler Murray, it is not going to be an easy road to hoe to get a quarterback situation there.
They're going to throw money at Daniel Jones, who's going to have to give him a discount. Might not be ready for the start of the regular season. We might be talking about Riley Leonard, Anthony Richardson, and Daniel Jones again to get through the first month of the year.
Yeah. I do think one element of this Saleh thing is interesting to me is that
Mhm,
even when Sean McDermott became available, they like rushed to the altar to get that job, that deal done,
mhm,
signed, sealed, and delivered with Robert Saleh. Now, I don't know that that was any more than a reaction to losing out on John Harbaugh. I don't know
mhm.
that that was Saleh trying to beat McDermott to the punch, but the fact that there have been jobs that have filled up so quickly with McDermott, thrust onto the dance floor, it just shows me that maybe a lot of people inside the league looked at that Buffalo situation and thought he really did underachieve there. Maybe he's not the guy that we want to orchestrate our turnaround.
I'm going to look at it the other way and see the glass half empty. And I see a lot of general managers who don't have that much power saying, "I'm not bringing a powerful head coach in." Especially not
Yeah.
when, okay, with Harbaugh, he was on the market for a week or two. You start your due diligence. You got an excuse. Like, oh, Stephen Ross, oh, Amy Adams Strunk. We're 99% of the way in. Don't check your phone. There's nobody new on the market. Here, we signed our guy. We got our guy. Honestly, I know I'm a pessimist. So like that. That's how these organizations work. It's like, well, we had a vision and we had a paradigm for who the head coach was going to be. And Sean McDermott doesn't need that paradigm. And neither would Bill Walsh or Vince Lombardi or Alexander the Great if they became available, because our paradigm involves somebody that Mike Borgonzi can say he's got to answer to me because he doesn't have as much juice in the NFL. I'm, and,
And Saleh would run to that opportunity because it's redemption. It's an
right,
opportunity to redeem yourself and get the Jets stench off you.
right. It's another head coaching job. It's one of 32. And again, it's a team where there's probably a year or two runway before expectations get really high.
Yes. Speaking of expectations, I think that we raise the expectations on Kevin Stefanski and the Falcons. I think that the
Right.
Falcons win that division next year. I'm going to call it right here because the way they loaded up on defense in last year's draft, the way that those
Mhm.
two rookie edge rushers just were instant hits, the fact that they're, played so well down the stretch. You look at the fact that you have Bijan Robinson, probably an ideal fit for Stefanski's offense. You have Drake London. You might throw a bunch of money at Kyle Pitts to keep him there after his, strongest season of his career. Pretty good offensive line.
Yeah,
I don't know
very
what you
good.
do at quarterback, but Kirk Cousins played pretty well with Kevin Stefanski when they were together in Minnesota like 15
Sure.
years ago. It just seems like in a division where the Carolina Panthers backed in, got a
Yep.
gift into the postseason, the Buccaneers are going to be on another offensive coordinator. It feels like Stefanski could really, you want to talk about shaking off the stench? You could wash that, that stench of the Cleveland Browns off you pretty quickly with the personnel they have in place.
Everything you say, I agree with. Offensive line is very strong. Okay, skill position talents there. Defense really emerged last year with those young players. It just sounds like you're betting on the Falcons.
I know. When I was in the building for 28-3, you were in the building for 28-3. Even
We
the garbage
the,
pandas don't
the,
touch the Falcons every week.
all of the people you just described were there this year, and they couldn't win that division. Even though they got upsets against the Rams and against the Bills. And those upsets demonstrate, yeah, this is what can happen. So I like Stefanski there. I think he's good for it's going to be a balanced, run-heavy offense. I love all of that. He'll probably be able to bring in some pretty good defensive coaches for that talent. It's just the Falcons. They could screw up a wet dream. They've made every good choice. They got rid of McKay. Every good choice the last couple of weeks. I have to wrap my brain around the Falcons making good decisions, and I cannot do that simultaneously with wrapping my brain around the Giants making good decisions. Can only handle one change of fortune at a time in my brain.
The whole paradigm might be shifting when you
Oh,
talk about those two franchises and maybe the Titans turning around their
yeah.
fortunes in the span of an offseason in the span of one hiring.
Now, to be clear, I never think about the Titans, so that doesn't count. I never think about the Titans.
Well, they're very unfortunately irrelevant.
Yeah, and maybe this will turn things around, but yeah, they're very very forgettable.
Yes. What do we think happens in Buffalo? Not to, spin the wheels too much, but where do we think, who do we think winds up taking that job? Is it Dable? Is it Joe Brady? Is it name X that we haven't linked there yet?
I mean, if I was competent, I would do due diligence and do a search. If I was Brandon Beane, I would bring in Dable or Brady. Brady would be a horrendous choice. I don't think Dable is a good choice at all. Again, there's a couple of years in New York. The more power he has, the more it turns into bridge burning, pressure cooker type decision making, all of this backroom political stuff that we see in Buffalo. We saw a bunch of that in New York. I think that's horrible. It's just right now hard to. It's the same thing to a degree, in Baltimore and in Pittsburgh, where you say, okay, there's the coach who had all that success. Which of these guys whose resume does not come close to that do we like? It's one thing to take a McDaniel out and put a Hafley in, and it's like, okay, Hafley's maybe more of somebody who can be a more leader of men, manager type, etc. Replace Morris with Stefanski. It's like, oh, okay, I can see it goes from defense to offense. You're going from, 13 wins a year to Clint Kubiak, Campanile.
Yeah.
It's like,
Kubiak might be the guy, and I don't know that I would have any real issue there because you can see the parallels between James Cook and Kenneth Walker. You can certainly see the upgraded quarterback with Josh Allen and what he'd be able to do in that system. You just still have to go and get a wide receiver. And I think that, you look at how this is all played out. The name that we didn't touch on because he took his name out of consideration for these head coaching jobs is Mike McDaniel.
Yes.
And I think that when you look at Josh Allen, when you look at needing that offensive coach, Mike McDaniel was the plug and play hire, in my opinion, because you can put him in there, do all kinds of crazy motion to try to maximize and elevate the receivers and hide some of their deficiencies. You have a dominant, MVP level quarterback. You go and hire a top defensive coordinator. You're taking the paradigm shift of being a defensive minded head coach to an offensive minded head coach. But he ran into the arms of Justin Herbert and the Chargers pretty quickly. And I think that underscores how people in the league view Justin Herbert, view that situation, and especially when those two offensive linemen are healthy with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, you could be talking about Justin Herbert and the Chargers being a top 5 or top 10 offense with Mike McDaniel next year.
And that's a perfect fit for McDaniel. Again, he gets Herbert, and then he gets Jim Harbaugh, so he doesn't have to do any personnel leadership stuff. He can design his plays, install his plays, pat Herbert on the head, do his thing. Harbaugh handles all the rest, all the guardrails in terms of management, discipline, and everything. There is a guy who does that and only that. So then you can be the tinker, like the engineer in the corner doing that stuff. In Buffalo, McDaniel would have lost the locker room in a quarter of a second. I'm sorry, it would have been the veterans would have been like, "What the hell is this?" And that would have been the end of that. The fact that he took himself out of the running for the Browns head coaching job shows you where the Browns head coaching job is right now on people's list.
Well, I spoke to a source just after Black Monday to kind of get a feel for some of these jobs, and I asked a plugged-in agent who represents a ton of players around the league, maybe a coach or two, really plugged into the coaching carousel every year. He told me that the situation in Cleveland is so toxic, he won't even send his players there. That he will try to move players away from the Browns, out of conversation with the Browns. And you don't hear that about any other organization. There's only 32 teams bidding for these players. Now you're talking about 31. That's just how bad it is, how untenable it is to succeed there, and just how toxic ownership on down it has become for the Browns.
Right, and they got rid of DePodesta, they lose Stefanski, et cetera. The GM that's still there, he's not somebody who's like driving culture. Yeah, he's not a culture guy. He's cap and scouting and stuff like that. So you wonder what's going to change, but you're not going to bring in a coach who can change that if coaches are saying, I'd rather just be a coordinator. I don't want the money, fame, and glory right now. I want to go just work for Jim Harbaugh and then hang out with Justin Herbert. It's better. No thanks, but no thanks.
I'd rather chill on Manhattan Beach with Justin Herbert than deal with Jimmy Haslam.
Oh, well, the number of people I would rather be anywhere than Jimmy Haslam in Berea, Ohio. There's a long list. Berea is not bad, by the way. It's a perfectly nice little town. But like, you start naming people, I would rather be with than Jimmy Haslam. I mean, porcupines. I'd rather be with a porcupine than Jimmy Haslam.
Marina Del Rey, Berea is not.
I thought you said Lana Del Rey. Like, what's she got to do with it? I'd rather be with Lana Del Rey with Jimmy Haslam. I'm not being weird, but I don't think that's a hot take. Marina Del. I hear you. Okay, we're back. We're back.
There you go. So the other move that I think a lot of people in the room, about 50 people here hanging out with us today, which is awesome. The vacancy a lot of people care about is probably the Eagles' offensive coordinator job,
Yeah, yeah.
and that search has not gone anywhere near as well as I think Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, and Nick Sirianni and the Eagles thought that it would go, because you had Mike McDaniel running away, even though he was promised reportedly total autonomy of the defense. Brian
Yeah.
Dable was apparently going to Del Rossi's for cheesesteaks with them, but not really interested in anything other than the free meal because he has sights set on Tennessee or Buffalo, according to Diana Rossini's great reporting. Some interesting names, but I don't know. I just never got the sense that they were going to be able to bag the big name that they expected to get for this job.
The Eagles' offensive coordinator search is the Eagles' offense of coordinator searches. It's just finding ways to come up short. And again, I'm not a Daboll fan. McDaniel would have been great. I don't know how much of that was. You're right. They made an offer to him, and he's like, "Yeah, no thanks, Marina Del Rey." They interviewed Mike Kafka. I kind of like Mike Kafka. They interviewed Zach Robinson, who has the McVay family roots. He was there in Atlanta with all of that. Again, you saw that running game be effective, although it was kind of predictable. There was still an effectiveness to it. I don't know if that's the best choice. I guess Eagles fans are not going to get what they want with this, and whatever that is.
No, and the hour after Kevin Patullo was fired, I went on Threads, I went on Blue Sky, and I said the name to watch here is Scott Leffler, the quarterback's coach. I think we might have even talked about it last week. There were a handful of times where Jalen Hurts at the podium talked about what a great influence Scott Leffler is behind the scenes, and you know how he hopes that he can stay on staff. You know, wink, wink, nod, nod. Hope we can keep him around. It just seems like after you've had McDaniel and Dable now say thanks, but no thanks, then if you're not going to get one of those caliber of experienced play callers, the move might be a guy to maintain some semblance of continuity with Jalen Hurts, who's called plays in the past. The fans aren't going to like it. The fans are going to think that, you know, it's just another guy who's tied to Nick Sirianni at the hip. But I think Nick Sirianni is running out of guys, enough strings that he can tie to the hip without his getting cut loose from the organization. But Leffler might be the last of the Mohegans and maybe the best overall fit here because he knows the scheme, knows the personnel, knows the quarterback.
It's just an ugly, ugly process because then it starts sounding like they go into these interviews and Sirianni starts acting like a jerk to like scare people away or whatever, or like the interviewing crew doesn't sound organized, and like, you know, McDaniel or these other guys, like these guys don't know what they want. I'm going to be told one thing, I'm going to get another thing. There's a worry there. And you take the quarterback coach and then you make him passing game coordinator. You make them assistant head coach, quarterback coach. You throw Hurts an appeasement policy. But I think the lesson learned from every time there's been a promotion from within in Nick Sirianni's staff, somebody else brings to the table, that becomes a worry because then 2025 looks like the lightning in the bottle year where Barkley had a bunch of 75-yard runs and that kind of fueled everything. And you are running out of tokens for that team.
Right, and Saquon Barkley isn't getting any younger. And I think that when you look at the offense as it became comprised this year, there just weren't enough situations where you set Saquon Barkley up in the screen game, where you ran him off tackle enough to get him into space where he thrives. It was a lot of, hey, let's run him up the middle, or let's run some A-gap type of things. And it just increased the punishment on his body, a lot of unnecessary additional hits that he didn't take the year before because of the way the run game was schemed up. I think that mismanaging Saquon Barkley was as detrimental to that offense not functioning as the unimaginative route trees and route concepts were that everybody from the bus stop dads to my barber want to pin those failures on with Kevin Patullo.
Well, if you wind up with Zach Robinson, I'll tell you this: running inside is not the problem. It is all outside zone.
Yeah.
The problem is it is all outside zone. And and Bijan had a Saquon-like season running it, but you're like, oh, well, we're trying to bring a dose of creativity in. That's not necessarily what you get with Zach Robinson. If you bring in Zach Robinson, you're like, let's draft 2 more offensive linemen. Not a bad idea anyway, and go with it. So we'll see. Kafka's still in the wind. I don't know what other interviews have been out there. I personally, like fans, do not want to see a promotion from within.
I could see Mike Kafka being a great fit there. I mean, he's a rising star in the coaching community, kind of
Mhm.
dealt an unfair hand with all the injuries in New York and Jackson Dart, going through the concussion protocol when he was given his interim opportunity. But he was head
Yeah.
coach of one of the teams of the Senior Bowl last year, got to chat with him a few times, chatted with him a couple times in my time on the Giants beat. I think the Eagles, if they hire Mike Kafka, fans should be thrilled. Bill Houston checks in the chat. What are you guys' thoughts on Eric Bieniemy going back to the Chiefs as offensive coordinator? It's the perfect fit. It's the Andy Reid going to somebody that he knows, trusts, won Super Bowls with. For Eric Bieniemy, I don't know what the upside is. I thought the whole point of getting out of Kansas City was to have success elsewhere and
Yeah.
launch yourself into that head coaching conversation. That ship may have sailed years ago. Maybe it's not coming back to harbor. Maybe for Eric Bieniemy, it's I'm going to call plays for Andy Reid or work alongside Andy Reid for 2 years, and Andy will retire, and I can take on the back end of Patrick Mahomes' career. But it just seems like that's kind of par for the course.
There's 2 sides to this one. One of them is Patrick Mahomes giving a quote a couple days ago, or like a week and a half ago. Like, it'd be great to have somebody bringing fresh ideas every day. And that's not Eric Bieniemy. The flip side of that is Eric Bieniemy, from everything I know, was really the run game coordinator for Andy Reid. That was kind of the role he was playing. Andy does most of the offensive stuff himself, whether it's Nagy, whether it's whoever has been there over the years. Bieniemy really works the offensive line and run game. That could be a big benefit, because that's what fell apart in the last couple of years, where it just became an afterthought, a waste pitch, something to do on 3rd and inches. And if Bieniemy comes in and brings more creativity, more focus, better installation there, that could be a boon for the Chiefs.
Go throw a ton of money at Breece Hall and run the damn ball. That's what I say if I'm Kansas City, right?
Breece Hall would be good there. That's a good fit. Never throw a ton of money at a running back. Throw modern running back money at a running back.
It's one of the few needs they have, right? I guess you have to fix the offensive line. Go find your missing piece. A lot of teams checked a lot of their boxes last offseason. That's why they're in the conference championship game. Really interesting slate. Really unfortunate turn of events for the Broncos, though, losing Bo Nix in that game.
That went from, boy, this will be an intriguing matchup, to, oh, brother, Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. And that's why I put this, because the conference championship previews, they're a dime a dozen. I'll be doing one with Aaron Strauss tomorrow. He'll bring a lot of DVOA to the table. I'll probably just nod. But I wanted to really focus this. Okay, we know about Stidham, we know about May, we know about the Patriots. Give me, under the circumstances, any reason to believe in the Denver Broncos on Sunday.
Can they run the ball 45 times?
No, they're not good at that.
They're not. I have a key matchups piece coming out tomorrow. It is not good. The running game is not good in Denver. It's going to have to be. To me, it's their meal ticket. To me, it's trying to figure out how to shorten the game, how to keep Drake May off the field, and how to hide Jarrett Stidham in the same way that Kubiak has been able to hide Sam Darnold. It's the only way. It's one of those things where it's not a great way. To get from point A to point B, you're going to have to go through a cave that's on fire, and then you're going to have to go through, a monsoon when you come out of it. And then it's going to be a desert, and then you're going to get there. That's what trying to run the ball is with the Broncos against the top 5 rushing defense. But it's the only way, I think.
It's like Lord of the Rings level stuff, this quest here. I'm going to stop you. There's a difference between hiding Sam Darnold and hiding Jarrett Stidham. Sam Darnold has led a team to 28 victories in the last 2 years, was a former number 1 pick, has an incredible arm, really does, and does a couple of things well, etc. Jarrett Stidham is an offensive coordinator with a helmet.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's a whole level of difference in terms of hiding them there. Point taken, though. The only thing I can look at is say, boy, obviously, we know Broncos defense is good. Hey, that's fine. They're in position to lose 16-3 at this point. Can home field advantage make that much of a difference? I think home field advantage for the Patriots made a huge difference in the last 2 weeks. They got a California team, then they got snow, slush, and ice, and you have CJ Stroud short-circuiting. I really think crowd noise messed up both Stroud and that offensive line full of strangers.
Yeah.
Could it flip the other way when you go to Mile High and you've got that crowd there, and now it's the young players on the Denver offense that are a little discombobulated? If this winds up being some magical upset that we'll be talking about for the next 25 years, I think part of it will be there were mistakes. We saw May fumble a few times. There were mistakes that led to defensive points, and and all of that was because of the conditions and the environment in Denver.
Yeah, you get a Patrick Surtain pick six early in the game. It changes things because then you don't need Jarrett Stidham to throw the ball 25 times. Then you can kind of sit on things and you can pin your ears back. That Broncos defense is built to play with and protect a lead and impose its will as it has it. I just have a hard time envisioning them running out to a lead to protect.
Right. Well, and it almost happened for the Chargers because May's early mistake put the ball on the 5-yard line, and then Herbert and the Chargers couldn't put it in. The Texans were never in position to protect the little leads they had briefly in that game because they kept short-circuiting. If you create a situation like that, strip six, fumble, whatever, then maybe you get that. So, but I feel like it's almost got to be 10 points. At 10 points, Sean Payton can go to the secret section of his playbook that's like, here are little ways to get first downs. Here's the reverse that we never ran. Here's the special screen pass we only use for like secret occasions or whatever. If it's not something where it's 2 scores and you can pin your ears back, you're just begging for, made a Diggs. Travion Henderson broke loose against the blitz and got you 45 yards, whatever. And now the game's tilted the other way and it's game over.
And it can happen really quick when you don't have a competent quarterback. Any reason to doubt the Seahawks besides Sam Darnold? I'll just jump on this one real quick, Mike. If Kenneth Walker somehow isn't the same player without Zach Charbonnet as a change of pace, complementary weapon, and he's a little bit different, a little bit less effective against a defense that's not made up of backups along the front seven, that's the only way I think that this is any real concern for the Seahawks, because I wrote in the column on Monday, they're like 22 sledgehammers. They are just built to beat you and punish you and expose you on every single snap. They're as physically imposing as they are explosive. I think that I might have undervalued them through much of the year, not undervaluing them going into this matchup at all.
Right. I agree. Walker and Charbonnet, and the idea that like Charbonnet usually gets the short yardage carries and you give those to Walker and he's like, I'm going to bounce this to the outside, dude. It's 3rd and 1. That's why they take you out in those situations. The other element of that is left tackle Charles Cross, who was playing injured against San Francisco, and they took him out when the game was getting out of hand. And like, this is precautionary. Precautionary means that he's playing injured. His backup right now is Amari Kite. That is a undrafted rookie because the regular backup is also hurt. That's another factor those guys go against. I think Jared Verse on that side of the field. Yeah, you create a situation where you get a mismatch there and you don't have as many weapons as you've even had in the last half of the year. You're facing a tougher opponent than, say, the Jared Stidham-led Broncos, or certainly the 49ers, who were just out of dudes by December, honestly, but kept going.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that Seattle was built to impose their will on the team like the Rams. And I think that this is really going to come down to, can Sam Darnold vanquish this last ghost? This is the one, because I wrote about it in the column that comes out tomorrow previewing both championship games. These are the same Rams that sacked him 9 times last year in the playoff loss. And he's done so much better protecting the football, no turnovers. The 49ers at the Week 18 game, no interceptions last week. This is the one. You get over this hump, I don't know that we're going to have to talk about, can Sam Darnold deliver in big games again? Because I think he's finally, shaking that monkey off his back.
6 interceptions in the 2 games against the Rams this year. 4 in the first one, which was the Seattle loss, 2 in the later one, where the fourth quarter comeback, which was largely special teams, Shaheed, defense, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, obviously it's Darnold. I want to be like, God, we have to stop with the Darnold thing. Yeah. Because a lot of us are, when we say ghosts, we're taking a 2018 reference.
I know.
Yeah, right, with the Jets. And it's like, at some point this should end and we should look at him in a different way. But 6 interceptions, say, no, you still have to talk about him in this respect. Let me ask you this. Do you have more faith in the Rams or less faith in the Rams after the 2 playoff wins than you had, say, I don't know, week 16 or 17?
I'm going to say about the same. I'm
Okay.
going to really
Okay.
straddle a line here because I don't think that they're nearly as good as we thought they were at Thanksgiving. But I think that they're not as bad as they were down the stretch with that weird loss on the road on Monday night to the Atlanta Falcons. But on the same time, it's not all that encouraging that you have to come back both against the Carolina
Mhm.
Panthers
Mhm.
and come back in Chicago because the clock struck midnight on Caleb Williams in the clutch. But
Mhm.
you did have 2 comeback victories, and it is
Yeah.
hard to come back in the postseason of all places, and Matthew Stafford checked both of those boxes. So no better, no worse. They kind of are what they are, in my opinion. How about you?
They are what they are. DVOA says they went down a little bit during these games, particularly the Panthers game, where it's like, this should have been the easy win. And here you are again in this situation where nothing seems to be working out for you on the road. It's a little windy and that's messing you up. So I look at their secondary and I see holes. I see big gaping holes in that secondary. Now, the good news is, again, there's not just Darnold, but there's one guy to cover. Okay, although Cooper Kupp has been stepping up, and the Rams know him pretty well. I look at that, and then I go back to things like the special teams and say,
Yeah.
and finally the fact that they've been on the road for 3 straight weeks. Like, there are all these vulnerabilities here that normally when I look at the Seahawks and the Rams neck and neck, DVOA neck and neck, when I look at them where they're at right now, I can't look past you needed Caleb Williams to finally roll a 1 instead of a 20 when he went back there. You mismanaged the clock in that game. You let the Panthers once again give you the run of your life. Meanwhile, what have the Seahawks been doing? Blowing people out by 30 points.
Every week. Every
Right.
week.
Good opponent.
And blowing you out with defense, blowing you out on
Yeah.
offense with explosive plays, blowing you out by
Yeah.
running the ball down your throat until you can stop it. Turns out you can't.
Mhm.
That's where I just look at this game, and it just seems like everything is coming up Seahawks for me, which means that the Rams are going to win by 3 scores.
Rams are going to win.
But it
Right.
just seems
Right. I heard somebody compare the Seahawks to like Nick Saban's best Alabama teams, where the blowout happened, but it was very, very slowly, very, very slowly. It's like, wait, how is it 23-3? I didn't see the big plays or anything like that. It's like, no, the offense wasn't really that great. They choked you out on defense, special teams. They kicked a couple field goals, one big play. You are done, and that's what the
done.
Seahawks look like in most weeks.
I do think it's going to be a great game, though. I don't know
Yeah.
that it's going to be blowout, Terry. I think it's going to be really compelling. It's just there's too much firepower on that Seattle side for me. Not to mention you're walking into an absolute firestorm of that building in a
Yeah.
championship game situation with
Yes.
the noise, and it's a tough place to get to and all that. It just
Mhm.
seems like the Seahawks check a lot of boxes in this.
They do check a lot of boxes, and we won't be able to watch the game because we're going to be shoveling snow the entire time.
I know. Just so we can get out to Mobile. Hey, what do you got coming up on the Two Deep Zone?
Check it out right now because we have on there a little coaching carousel roundup, and there's more thoughts on there about Stefanski, more thoughts about Halfley, more thoughts about the Bean McDermott situation, which everybody's talking about. Check that out. Otherwise, I am kind of shifting gears a little bit, getting ready for next week, getting ready for Super Bowl week and the championship week. What about you?
That's awesome. And that column, I said it on Substack, I'll say it here. That was quintessential tenure. That was you writing in the zone. It's
Thank you.
informative, it's funny, it takes it to the next level on how these teams think about their coaching situations. It's must read. Go over the Two Deep Zone. We have my awards up on the site right now.
Yeah.
Between the hash marks, MVP, offensive,
Yes.
defensive players, rookies, all those things. Going to be a busy week the rest of the week. Tomorrow we have one key matchup and prediction for each of these games.
Good.
Trying to button up a feature on the Foxborough facelift, how Mike
Yeah.
Vrabel and Elliott Wolf and Drake May turn this around in the span of one off season, how it's become Patriot way to the Vrabel way so quickly and seamlessly. And we'll have the mailbag on Friday before we head down to Mobile on Monday, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, just hearing that schedule of stuff, I'm tired just listening to you write about it.
Yeah, and we kind of sometimes we coast into the postseason, and then it focuses me. It's like, okay,
Nice.
you have to. We can like focus in all these storylines and try to get all that great content out there. Let's see if we can springboard into the off season with.
Perfect. Good thinking.
Be sure to follow Mike Tanier on Blue Sky. He's Mike Tanier. Subscribe to the Too Deep Zone on Substack. Thanks everybody who came in to check out the live podcast. We have close to 60 people in the room. Great showing, great interaction. You can subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack. Follow me on Blue Sky at Matt Lombardo. And you can check out the podcast in the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us those 5-star reviews. They really do help grow the show. We'll read them on the air next week. Mike, this has been a ton of fun. Hopefully I get to see you over some beignets on Monday.
I hope I see you over some beignets too, but I think I might be doubled over in pain out in front of my driveway.